I'm Mr. Rosansky, and this is a speedrun of practice test PSAT 1, the second module, the C module, the hard one, and I've lost 2 minutes here, players, but everything's going to be fine. We're going to head into the first convention question and launch into our omega considerations. Now, I don't see anything pop, so I go looking for consistency in this step. I love going after the semicolon, and I check the semicolon. There isn't anything in the text, but there's no period, so I'm not going to kill him. As I was looking, I did notice this little Andorino here, and B is going to give me an option to choose these two commas working together in a list. And even though we often see these semicolons working in complex lists, this one is as easy as, well, commas work together to make a list. So we pick it. We move on. We're in the convention still. We're going to check our omega consideration. And we've got verb, we've got a plural, we've got a plural, we've got a plural, we've got a singular. So I'm going to bias the singular option and go looking for my subject, and it is amplifying. Amplifying was of particular importance. I love it. In the convention section still, I'm going to check my omega considerations, and nothing pops. It is tempting to say that there maybe be a complete sentence mix-up, but the B in your fanboys for your coordinating conjunctions is but, not by. So that falls. As I look for equivalence, consistency, LOLJK, as I look for consistency, I check this semicolon, but I don't see anyone anywhere. Then I move on to the next step, which is equivalence, but don't you dare kill C. These are not equivalent. By adding does not equal adding, even though semicolon equals period. So we have to keep moving to the final four. Let's start considering this semicolon. Do I have a complete sentence on the left? You read it, would you put a period there? I absolutely would. As I look at the left side, I've got rooftops, absorb, and convert. I've absolutely got a complete sentence over here. So that side's chill. Let's look to the right side. By adding a light covering to an existing roof, either by attaching prefabricated reflective sheets or spraying on the paint-like coating, helps combat. I would not put a period here if I were to choose this by adding option. Reason being, if your ear doesn't help you out, this helps. This is a verb that tells me when has no access to a subject. Therefore, he's false. But remember, A and C are not equivalent, so we should check this guy. As I now remove the preposition by, adding is totally chill. Adding helps combat this effect. It's functioning just like the subject was in this one. How gorgeous that we have this back-to-back heat check on gerunds as subjects. So this is gorgeous. I like this. C is beautiful. C would be making the same mistake of joining two complete sentences with just a comma, and then D creates a slightly different problem, pushing it down the road to over here. So I love my C. Move on. In the conventions, I'm going to look for my omega considerations. Nothing pops. I'm going to look for consistency. I see this little semicolon. I look in the surrounding text. Ain't nothing there. Therefore, I can, in the following step, eliminate something. And that does fall. Then I've got these two guys. I just want you to read it, and if you pause, pick the pause-arena. And I almost guarantee that you would pause here, because you would recognize, at least tacitly, that this among them does not restrict all riders. Therefore, comma goes. Conventions. Let's look for our omega considerations. Ain't none of them. Let's look for consistency. Lists and bridges. Let's go after our dash since there's no semicolon. Dash to dash. I like that the thing underneath the dash describes the territories. I'm going to read over the dash. Liberating 3 South American territories from colonial rule. Based. I love it. I'll pick it. I check my omega considerations, and I've got nothing. So I'm going to look for consistency with lists and bridges. This semicolon jumps out at me. This semicolon in the text jumped out at me. I'm going to make sure there's not like another semicolon, so something crazy isn't going on. So I know that this lonely little semicolon in this complex list needs a homie. Pick it and move on. I've got another omega consideration. This is exciting stuff. We've got mood chilling in this question. Am I asking a question or making a statement? How are they able to move so fast, right? I've always wondered this about penguins. So I'm going to pick D, be happy with myself, and move on. What do I got here? With her room-sized installation, she succeeded in creating a space that felt as intended, both familiar and distant. Log it matters. Blah, blah, blah. Her installation was reminiscent of a typical movie theater, albeit one found in a subterranean mine. So familiar, and distant. What's my relationship? It's not an example because it's a specific thing, maybe a little specifically going on. Next is sequent. That doesn't make sense. Nevertheless describes some sort of crazy contrast, but this is that thing and instead is wrong for the same reason as it nevertheless is. Indeed wins. Indeed, her installation was typical of a movie theater. It's like restating the thing, kind of amplifying it a little bit. Fine, whatever. I'll pick it, move on. ABA triggers a slowdown in the biological processes of most plants. All right, all right, all right. When the hormone triggers accelerated growth, so we've got a little bit of a sequence here. When the mustard plant is in response, we've got accelerated growth. So we like this idea. In contrast, it does this in most plants. That's essential. Triggers a slowdown in most plants, whereas for this one plant, it does the opposite. So in contrast is what we're going to land on here. And I'll even make these beautiful colors. Watch this. Blue to blue, pink to pink. Gorgeous. In contrast, you land on it. You pick it, you win. Logical transition. Let's see. Ooh, couldn't help but notice that we're chilling in the center of the sentence. So make sure you move him to this sentence initial position. A new, more diverse generation of artists is stepping up to the podium. What have I got then? They took over in Queensland, and Columbia's person did the same in this opera. So we are instantiating. The right side instantiates the artists stepping up. We're going to pick it and move on. We're going to emphasize a difference between these asteroids. Planetary scientists classify asteroids two types, two of which this is like a similarity. This seems to be like a definition or like a similarity. Planetary scientists consider an asteroid's composition when classifying it. Nah, that ain't it. That's not giving me a difference between these things. That's saying that a nerd would use them to use differences, but I don't know them. Roughly 17% of asteroids are S types, and another percentage is classified as C types. I guess that's a maybe. C-type asteroids are mainly composed of carbon. This is gorgeous. Whereas, let's make sure that this is true first. C-type carbon, C-types carbon, carbon, S-types silicate, absolutely over here. So this is gorgeous. I want to think about why I don't like this one. We want to emphasize the difference. The roughly 17% is true. Then the another percent, yeah, I guess there's a classic kind of ambiguity failure here. You would kind of assume that if one's 17, that the other would be 383, right? 83%, but it's not, so that there are other types. C is gross because it seems to imply that there are only two types. It's also gross because I don't really know what the other side is. There's just so much ambiguity in C, and D just perfectly gives me what I want. I want to emphasize the location of the first built to provide light. So it's a very specific kind, right? So location, 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 location. This is when. 26 is offering a when, and I don't really think that's what I'm going for. Boo, 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 boo. This does not give me a when. A lot of words there, though, but it doesn't give me a when. The first was created for the purpose of providing, was housed. I love that. Is the light is making it. This doesn't give me a when. What a weird phrasing for such a weak payoff. The order in which these two exhibitions were held. We've got one in 2017, here it is, and then a year later, 27A is looking pretty cute, unless it's lying to me. The paintings, some of which appeared in, I don't know the order. This states that there are paintings in an order, but it doesn't give me the order. The visual artist has displayed his work. He's very popular, but I don't know the order that these came up in. And then this final one. All right, we've got a year. I know that was held, but I don't know when these were held, so I can't extract anything. This is it, even though it's kind of bizarre. Let's go into 121 minutes to spare. This is too easy. Too easy. PSAT is too easy. I'll send them an email to tell them to tighten up. So in this one, I'm going to look for my signal element. I've got allowing her to view the inner structure of the organism's eye. I appreciate right here that I can probably launch into it. The broken area, it offered fresh insight. It gave her fresh insight, and that's what's going to match here. Suggestion, I have to read a lot more than I want to with these weird little nearly means. What a night 'twas, my soul had left its body to lose itself in the wild, unrestrained beauty around me from where it came, and only left a trembling suggestion of its existence within me. It was just a tiny little trace within this person, absolutely. We're living here, let's fight the fight. In the sentence that we're in, he uses open source data and statistical modeling to identify when a number of when a number of users making one-way trips is likely to leave some locations within the system blank and others. So my first signal element that I'm going to jump on is kind of this some locations plus and others. This is actually expressing a difference. I land on the word that I'm providing a difference to here. Some have X, others have insufficient. So we are looking for the opposite in this environment, and that's pretty exciting. Saturated gets my pick. What's the main purpose of the text? Let's read the last sentence and then start plugging away. To aid with this transition, to help this change, she helped get jobs for many women. Good, good, good. So let's start at the start and not lose sight of like her helpage. Early in the GM, I understand what it is. I know the definition. Political activist. The she, right? So Williams was instrumental in helping women in the North. She helped get better jobs because South was rough and men did ag. Okay, so she mattered so much. Here's what she did, and that's just like more of like she was so important. This is like how she did it. To introduce and illustrate her integral role, I love this, as their circumstances changed. Yeah, during this transition, absolutely. At first, I was a little puzzled at that, but this transition maps on perfectly here. 4A is looking beautiful. To establish, she used her professional connections to arrange employment for women, including, we have no evidence to support that she got people there. And then professional connections, kind of wiggity whack, right? I'm clinging to aid with this transition during this part to demonstrate the factors that motivated the start of the Great Migration was different. Oof, no. Though it's mentioned here, there was a crazy focus on helpage of women, not the difference between the two. To provide an overview of the employment challenges, yes. Oh no. To provide an overview, no. This kind of, but it loses all of the credit that this text is giving throughout to this woman and all that she did to help. A gets the pick. Another main purpose one, fine. Let's go to the last sentence just to ground us to make sure that we don't lose sight of that. This movement was big in Ecuador, where she, from this party, was elected president in 2021. Nice. So we are going to trash this little note, look for something up here that can help us. Let's make it a different color. We're going to summarize as we go. A number of IPs have been elected in US since I'm just skimming the bottom. Okay. US since 2000 as members in the two-party system. Cool. I'm comfortable with that. In Canada and several Latin American countries, on the other hand, in C and LA, Indigenous people have made their own parties for their communities. All right. So we've got a number have happened in the US in the two-party system. Canada went a different route, and this was bigly, the second movement was the second kind of movement. This movement in here was big in Ecuador, where it happened. Cool. To trace the history of an indigenous political movement and speculate, maybe here, but it does not speculate about its future development. To argue that indigenous politicians in the United States should form their own, no, they were both pretty effective. To highlight two approaches to achieving political representation for indigenous people, yeah. In A, we had like just joining the two established parties, and then A in the first part, and then in the second part, it was like, dog, make your own. To consider how indigenous politicians in the United States have influenced those in there. I've got on the other hand, not as a result. I would expect this on the other hand to be just a different word if that were the case, but it's not, so I'm not going to. Main purpose again. Whew. Let's see what we've got at the end. We've got messy things, said Marilla. Messy things, said Marilla. Messy things. Messy stuff. Whose sense was not refined. You clutter, you are messy. Bedrooms should be clean. Let's read the previous ideas. We've got this first sentence here. Anne, so the person that she was speaking to, Anne loves color and fun, right? Loves color and fun. She exclaimed once, oh, Marilla, she exclaimed one Saturday morning she is a super fun flower girl. I'm so glad I live in a world where there are Octobers, celebrates. Time change. Would it be terribly scary? Wouldn't it? Look at the maple branches. She loves nature. She loves nature and will throw them in her room. So we've got this one girl who's super fun and adorable and runs around and whatever. Then we've got this little negative Nancy Marilla, based Marilla, by the way, to demonstrate that Anne is a newly developed. I don't really think that's the case. She appreciates these things, but I have no evidence to support that she hated it in the past. Additionally, it doesn't really engage with the end of this, my pink down there. To describe an argument that they often have, you clutter up your room entirely too much with this outdoor stuff. I think that's missing the point here. I'll leave it on the table, though. To emphasize Marilla's disapproval of how Anne, this is focusing just too much at the very end. The description of this person, the final sentence, bedrooms are made to sleep in. Sure, she disapproves how she is planning on decorating her room, but we're missing the larger point, which is that these are different kinds of people, and to show that Anne and Maria have very different personalities. Absolutely. We started with Anne, we ended with her being like this closed-minded, stuffy person. These two are tempting, but they fit under the umbrella of what the entirety of this text is doing here. Text 2, text 1. Let's go after text 2 first and see what we've got for this one. Text 2. He cautions. He cautions against suggesting an ideal amount of. Don't say there is an ideal amount of free time. Human desire for both free time and productivity is universal. Everyone wants free time and productivity. However, he says that people have unique needs, and there is no real definition for productivity. Some believe what one believes is productive, another would disagree is productive. Okay, based on the text, how would Brooks likely respond to Sheriff and his after further research? All right, let's go in. In a study of benefits of having free time, don't say there's an ideal amount of free time. Everyone wants free time and productivity. However, people have their unique needs and there's no real definition for productivity. Fine. In the study of the benefits of having free time, found that the reported sense of life satisfaction tended to plateau when participants had this is after further research. I could have just gone right here. After further research, I'm forgetting literally all of this. Delete. Concluded that this dip in life satisfaction mainly occurred when individuals spent all their free time unproductively, such as this. This is going to engage with the notion of like, they spent their time unproductively. They would say, Maddox would say, hey, sheriff of fun. There's no such thing as unproductivity, right? That's defined by you. So I understand the fluffy, fake nonsense that this guy's saying, so I can start engaging by acknowledging that free time is more likely to enhance no, he doesn't agree with productivity. By challenging the reasoning, okay, as it has not been proved that productivity commonly contributes to life satisfaction, maybe. By warning against making an overly broad assumption, as there is no clear consensus on yes. Reading a book, yes. This one's fine. Let's go back to B. By challenging the reasoning text one, as it has not been proved that productivity commonly contributes. The human desire is universal. No, it's universal. But the unique needs are different. Overly broad. Oh. Yeah, absolutely. B false. By claiming that the specific activities named in text one are actually no. He says that there's no definition. So we move on. What's the main idea of the text? Let's go to the last sentence, give it a little highlight, and then come back to it. She found through stuff that even though physical traits are predictable, what aren't? Behavior varies in the same breed. So in a purebred dog, behavior changes. All right. Let's just go to the start of this and see what we've got. leading up to this. Modern breeds are long bred for appearance. Okay. Owners often say that some breeds, often said is that some breeds are prone to a I didn't spell that right, but we're not going back. Particular personality. For example, boxers are easy to train. However, physical traits surely are, but behavior, man, that changes. Dog breeds would not exist. I mean, that's absolutely true. And we wouldn't exist without them, but that's not the main idea. Fails to confirm that absolutely maps on. The dog breeds most popular have changed. That's not, I mean, while that might be true, that's not engaging with the text. The study of dog breeds, no, it drops the signal element of but, and I don't like it. B wins. Which best describes the moon with the eccentric orbit? We're going to read this. 20 previously unknown moons were confirmed to be orbiting Saturn. 3 of the moons have prograde orbits. That's a definition for it. And others have retrograde. That's a definition for it. All but one of the moons are thought to be bodies of Saturn until it broke apart, although one exceptional moon orbited in the same direction. It's highly eccentric. Here we are. So we've got this guy. Whew, we read a lot of crazy stuff with a bunch of terms. So the eccentric, what describes this one? Its orbit is eccentric, although the one exceptional moon orbits in the same direction as the planet spins. I see all of these things. So it's highly eccentric compared to the rest, although one exceptional moon does orbit in the same direction as the planet. What's that definition? Progrades orbits in the same direction. Retrograde is the opposite. So it doesn't have a retrograde orbit, but it likely has the same origin. So it's true. Its orbit is tilted with respect to the other moon's orbit, that it's neither. No, it is prograde. It is a prograde orbit, so both of these are true. I need to know what its origin. It doesn't have a retrograde, so but it is likely the same origin. Okay, what is its origin? All but one of the 20 moons are thought to be remnants of bodies that orbited Saturn. Did not body of Saturn orbit that broke, because it's the one exceptional moon. It doesn't have a retrograde orbit, but it likely has the same, or I don't know, it likely has a prograde orbit. No, it doesn't. It is a prograde this is true. True. That's supported by the text. Pick it and move on. Main idea again, this is abusive, right? Absolutely too much stuff, but that's fine. We'll read another text, we'll type it, we'll get it exactly what it wants. We only have a couple of questions, we'll stay optimistic. These main idea, those. Whew. It is not inconceivable. It ain't crazy to be thinking the context was true. However, let's just type it right. However, context over linguistic origin that supports 8th or 7th century composition. Context over linguistic origin just ain't been presented yet. Playa? Okay. Let's see what we've got. Oh, wait, we have to go to our first. We have to go to our first section. Oof. They make us work hard. They have said that we'll just borrow the concept below. Context in 9 and 11, namely the burgeoning literacy, were conducive to the caused, yeah, we'll say caused, even though that's a bit spicy, led to the production of Bayocat. So it was dated then. And he's saying, well, it's not crazy. It's just, why aren't you caring about grammar? Okay. Although there's some grounds for believing that Bayo was composed, true, advocates tend to rely on evidence and calls into question. No, they're not calling the question is. They're just saying, like, what about the grammar? It's better. Although this episode dated 9 through the others have argued the privilege of conflict. No. This is saying that this wasn't the real reason. That's not true up here, this burgeoning literacy. Although Beowulf fits well with the historical context of England in the late 9th through early 11th centuries, it fits equally well with the historical. Nope, it wasn't historical context. It was some sort of language game. Although the Although the claim has some plausibility, true advocates of the claim have not completely addressed evidence suggesting it. Yeah, that's like the grammar nerd stuff. What are the findings? Does this do? Sure, let's go after him. Oh, challenge. Don't drop that. Challenge. They assumed Dome would protect and thus allow for more range than open nests. So we would challenge that most directly by showing that open nests have larger range. Extinction rate doesn't seem to be it. Smaller in size doesn't seem to be it. Fewer materials doesn't seem to be it. And longer ranges is absolutely species that have longer ranges than that. Well, we're going to support the student's argument. What's your argument, dog? Oh, what's my title? Percentage of available eggs eaten by cane-toed tadpoles. Okay, fine. Argue that the presence, having B does not that's huge, entirely explain why the titles told us cane-toed tadpoles love eating certain eggs. We'll engage with the however for struggling, but maybe we can do it from here. The tadpoles consumed a higher percentage of these striped burrow frogs than they consumed of the dainty tree frogs. That is true. They consumed more. Cool. Eggs looking fit. The tadpoles left a certain percentage of eggs of each of the 5 species unharmed, thus ultimately allowing them. These benevolent little tadpoles. I don't even care if that's true. I know that this entirely was 100% dropped on just one layer of thinking. We're not showing how charitable these disgusting cane toads are. The tadpoles consumed a lower percentage of the short-footed frog eggs than did of their own species. That's true. So we have to compare these two. It's not entirely Y. The presence of B is not entirely Y. So here is B is present and there was a disparity. That seems to refute them. Whereas in this one, where they both don't have it, but there's a huge disparity, absolutely confirms it. Tadpoles get the same percent of dainty tree frogs. 1% no, as they did little red tree frogs. No, so they're both 1%. So this would hurt their conclusion as well. This is the same percentage of eating and not having it, so they must love that thing. Cross that out. Move on. Oof, we're going to come back to this sentence. How many do we have? Good. So let's go for this one. They said the communication difference could build to the point of stopping interbreeding. Let's see what we've got. Although living in genetically similar to those, rely on this less often than others. This is pretty trash. Although as a single priest, it could be splitting off. That I like it. Speaking about breeding, the fish live in rivers produce sound. This question about sound is kind of unhinged. Although from different locations can interbreed currently, these are both pretty chill. This statement is saying that they are currently genetically distinct. This one is saying that they are splitting into distinct. I'm going to start reading because they are disagreeing about the fact of the matter. This is saying there's little genetic difference that seems to be present. Therefore, B is the right answer. Let's go back to this one about whatever. We're supporting the conclusion. What's the conclusion? During Little Ice Age, ITCZ expanded rather than shifted. Expanded northward rather than shifted. I'm going to look at A. Neither the data showed significant locations in temperature during this. I'll table that. Both of them showed increased temperatures in prolonged dry conditions. So these seem to be making opposing claims on first glances. So let's get some data about where we're looking. A shift as far, I'm going to start reading here. Huaguapo Cave in Peru suggested that it shifted, but a shift so far in South America would have led to dry conditions in Central America, which is inconsistent with the climate models. So I'm looking for something that can help put these things together. So it would have been something that showed a stretch between them both. If there was no change in temperature, then they wouldn't have experienced the Little Ice Age at all, so that falls. Both show increased temperatures in prolonged dry conditions, but once again, shifts in possession. Band of clouds is a major source of rainfall. If they had prolonged dry conditions, they didn't experience it. That prolonged dry conditions are the same, showed prolonged dry conditions during the same portion in which the shows heightened rainfall. No, this is shifting it. The data show strongly correlated path. Yeah, they both experience rainfall. They both experience that at the same time because they both expanded throughout. Too easy.